I'll hit record. Sorry for that delay. Not sure where everyone else is. See, Brooklyn's there, and then Kaden, if you can go into the chat and just put a hello or hi, that'd be great. Okay. And this is informal today, so anytime you got a question or comment or anything, by all means, just unmute and ask. What I'm going to do here first is get started here on what's going on this week. So I'm going to bring up the Google Classroom for, not for Computer Lit, but for Sociology. Okay, a couple of things to clarify. First of all, last week we did kind of a special extra credit, be on camera, have a discussion type of thing. That was special to last week. If we do that again, I'll post about it and tell you up front. Otherwise, it'll just be our normal Zoom meetings. Mondays will be kicking off the week, going over the assignments for the week, what's going on, what to expect. And Thursdays will be a follow-up to that. So it'll be some more, a little bit of review, discussion, how things are going, if any modifications need to be made to the lessons or anything like that. So I posted that here in the stream. I use the same link, the same address every single time. So wherever you find it, I'll try to post them every week. But, you know, in case you didn't see it right away, it's the same one. You just find any of them, they should work. So Monday, 2 o'clock, Thursday, 2 o'clock. That's it for this class. You can contact me as always, you know, text, email, whatever, anytime, 24/7. Okay, for the assignments for this week, we're back. We only got 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then we come back after that for, I don't know, less than 2 weeks or thereabout. So it's going to go fast. It's going to go very fast. Last week, we just finished up the slides for chapter 7 and 8 and had the video generation like, which I extended that due date through today because some people had trouble with the link. So I posted, most of these frontline PBS videos also have a YouTube version out there. So I just went and found the YouTube version, changed all the links to the YouTube version, and I haven't heard any complaints since. So if you haven't seen it, you're still due today, still got today. It's quite interesting. It's not that hard of an assignment. And like I said, last week we finished up the chapter 7 and 8 slides. So you should have those done. Now 7 and 8, what are we talking about? What's going on here? We got 7, we got social control and deviance. And chapter 8 is social stratification. Now, first thing I want to say up front is these issues apply universally. These are issues in China, they're issues in Germany, they're issues in Nigeria, they're issues in Brazil, they're issues everywhere, you know, not just here, not just the United States. You got these same things people are dealing with all over the world, though it may be a little different from country to country and culture to culture. Social control, on one hand, sometimes people hear that, they think right away that could be negative, you know, trying to control people. It can be negative, but it also can be positive, okay? It's not in and of itself good or bad, depends on what's going on. A lot of these controls are informal, okay? They're not a law. They're just ways you're expected to behave in society, and that varies from culture to culture and community to community. Some of them are formal, okay, where they have a law or they have other things you can get in trouble over or get sanctioned for, as it's called. So basically all societies, all cultures try to have some kind of control over behaviors. And of course there's bad behaviors they try to avoid, and depending on the country and the location, it could be a negative thing in some cases. Like in the US South when they enforced segregation, you know, that was obviously a bad type of social control, okay? Or in Nazi Germany or in communist countries or places like that. And of course, right now we have a big debate going on right now with our current pandemic. We have, you know, sometimes it's by law, sometimes it's by business rules, sometimes it's by society expectations, but there's a lot of expectations that people engage in wearing a mask or social distancing or washing their hands or things like that with the pandemic. And we have a lot of people that do it, whether they feel forced to or not. We have people that do it only because it's mandated by a business or a job or the state of Michigan. And we have people that refuse to do it, even if it is mandated, even if it is the law. So we have those same types of issues going on right now here in Michigan with the pandemic. Okay, so the main idea of social control is norms, that'd be the way you're expected to behave, are followed for society to run smoothly. They are enforced through internalization and sanctions. So there's all different ways norms are enforced. Okay, your family has norms, our school does, religious groups do, society does in general, our country does. And again, this can vary from community to community and culture to culture. Sanctions are basically used to encourage or discourage certain behaviors. So a positive sanction would be like, say you get up and you do a speech or play music or sing or do something, and people cheer you on, give you a round of applause, things like that. That's positive sanctions. You do good in school, you get good grades. The grade is a sanction, a positive sanction if you're doing good. Negative sanctions, that's where you get a punishment or a threat of punishment to enforce conformity. So if you're speeding, you get a speeding ticket. People might put you down for behaving or dressing a certain way. We have certain behaviors that are considered appropriate or inappropriate. You can just get looked down upon. You can get in big trouble if you say certain things or if you're engage in certain behaviors. So there can be positive or negative sanctions. There's also formal and informal sanctions. Formal sanctions would be like a reward or punishment. It could be you get a detention in school for having your phone out. Someone gets a speeding ticket for speeding. Someone goes to jail for committing a crime. Parents ground you for violating some rules at home. Those are all formal. Those could be those are fairly formal sanctions, even in the case of parents. Informal sanctions would be just getting approval or disapproval from people in general. People might gossip about you if they don't like something you did. On the other side, people can give you a standing ovation if you're performing somewhere or doing a good job. I'm not going to go into every single thing here. I just mentioned deviance here briefly. Deviance is when there's a behavior that violates significant social norms. Deviance can serve positive functions such as clarifying norms, unifying the group, diffusing tension, promoting social change, and providing jobs. Functionalists, the people in conflict theorists, and interactionists all have different theories to explain deviance, which I'll talk more about probably on Thursday. But deviance is where you go away from the norm. Now, away from the norm, is that necessarily a bad thing or a good thing? It depends on what it is. If your deviance is to go steal, most people in most cultures and most situations would say that's a bad thing. We don't like people who steal. So if you're out stealing, breaking into houses, robbing a bank, that's bad deviance. And a lot in crime is deviance. Okay? If you are living in Nazi Germany and you're hiding Jews in your basement so they don't get killed in the Holocaust, technically that's deviance. In Nazi Germany and that situation, that's deviance. You're going against the law and against the expectations. But we would look at that now in history as like, wow, that was heroic. That was awesome. That was great. That people did such things, that they did violate the law. They did risk their lives. They did risk jail to save people's lives in that situation. So in the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks, at that time in many areas in the South, African Americans are supposed to sit in the back of the bus. And they had separate bathrooms and separate lunch counters and all these kind of discriminations. And brave people, including Rosa Parks, she went on a bus in, I think it was Montgomery, Alabama, or Birmingham, or one of those cities in Alabama, and she refused to sit in the back of the bus. And that started I think she got arrested, if I remember right, and then it started a protest and a bus boycott. There was a case in South Carolina, North Carolina, where a group of African American men went into a restaurant where they weren't allowed to be, and they sat at a lunch counter trying to have lunch. Okay, not too radical today, but at that time it was in that location. So that was considered deviance, and it led to protest, and it led to publicity. And that was a case where there was injustice, and they were engaging in what was considered deviant behavior, but we look now as history as good behavior, behavior that helped peacefully change some things that were most people consider wrong. Um, so that's a few things going on there with that. Um, so that's I just touched on those things. We'll be on Thursday. I'll talk about some of the other notes from here about social control and deviance and social stratification. Stratification is where they basically stratify people from top to bottom. Okay, you could say a high school has the most popular people and the least popular people, and most people are somewhere in the middle. Now, people can debate what that means, and does it really mean anything, or is it more of a perception than reality? But one way or the other, you have certain rankings. I'll just use an example that right or wrong, I think most people would agree with. In most American high schools, what gets by far the most attention in sports is football and boys basketball. Is that fair? Maybe not. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's right. But those would be considered higher status as far as getting attention, getting focus, and so forth. I personally played tennis in high school. We were somewhere about the bottom of attention. Matter of fact, we were so low attention that even a lot of our parents never even hardly showed up to watch us play. Doesn't mean there was anything bad about playing tennis. Doesn't mean people dislike tennis players. It just meant we did not get near the status or near the attention that other sports did. And, again, right or wrong, that's just the way it is, still is today. Now back to also social stratification can be about economics, upper class, lower class, middle class. One of the strange things about the United States is most Americans like to think of themselves as middle class. Now you might say, what's wrong with that? Well, okay, let's say for the sake of argument, 40% are truly middle class, like truly right in the middle, doing reasonably good, not rich, but, getting by okay. Now we have quite a few people that, quite frankly, maybe aren't full-blown middle class that like to think of themselves as middle class, but they're actually quite a bit poorer. Okay, they like to think of themselves as middle class, but they're probably more upper poor class or whatever you want to call it. A lot of times the term working class is used. Working class is kind of an unusual term because it's not solely about income. It's more about the type of job that you do. So if somebody does what's called a blue collar job, they work in a factory, they build things, they fix things, they do a lot of that kind of stuff as opposed to sitting in an office or that. They're often called working class. But that could include some fairly high paid skilled jobs. Okay, so that doesn't solely mean that about lower income. But just basing it solely on income, a lot of Americans that aren't making that high of an income view themselves as middle class. On the other extreme, some people who make enormous incomes also view themselves as middle class. They don't like to think of themselves as rich. I'm talking about people making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year. Yes, many of those people view themselves as upper middle class, when in fact they are rich. Okay, so that's just an American thing. Not a lot of people want to consider themselves poor, and even if they're quite well off, they often don't see themselves as rich. So we got, in reality, our middle class is probably a bit bigger in theory than it is in reality. So there's just different ways you have stratification in society. It can be by ethnic groups. It can be in India, they have the caste system, which is another thing we'll talk about on Thursday, and all that's going on. So just like I said, that's just touching on a few things there. Generation Like, hopefully you guys like that. If you haven't seen it yet, it's quite interesting. Now this year for this week, our assignments for this week. The first one I'm going to talk about, I should say, is a group of videos that are directly connected to the notes. Okay, we got some of those crash course videos that are quite good that cover topics from the notes. We got one on the Indian caste system and one on what's called the 99% myth. None of these are long. The longest one is 11 minutes, one's 10 minutes, one's 9 minutes, one's 4 minutes, one's 3 minutes. So you can knock out this assignment here, which is your biggest assignment for the week, probably in an hour, a little bit over an hour. Okay. Then we got well, I'll come to the Frontline documentary last. We have this TED Talk here, Dirty Secret of Capitalism. If you remember capitalism, about free enterprise and so forth. But there's a problem with income inequality that's gotten worse, and economic inequality has gotten worse. The people at the top have seen their wealth skyrocket in the last 30 years, and most everyone else has been stagnant or even has gone down in some cases. So it's not real long. It's fairly easy to do. So 17-minute video and a little assignment to go with it. What are the advantages of the how the upper middle class kids? Well, basically, it's people are born in, say, the top 20% of Americans. They tend to live in nice neighborhoods. They got good schools. They got a whole culture around their success. They know other successful people to help them get into key jobs or get internships or do all kinds of things to help keep them in success. Okay. Perpetuate success, focus on success. And for them, that just keeps people born into the upper 20%, going good and keep going good generation after generation. The problem is it's hard for others to get into that. Okay. And they go over some of it's only a 7-minute video, but it goes into some of the reasons for that. And so that's something else to think about there. Then the last one I'm going to talk about that we're doing that's relating to some of these topics. And we talk about crime, we talk about deviance and so forth. We talk usually about what we normally think of as criminals. Well, as you probably know, if you've been watching any news this year, there's been a lot of debate about actions of the police. Now, on one side, people in general are supportive of the police. I am too. My father used to be a policeman. And we like to think the police are honest and honorable and doing a fine job and doing their best, which the vast majority are, no ifs, ands, or buts. At the same time, we all know, you don't have to read much or look around much, there are police officers that are out and outright criminals, okay? Selling drugs, murder for hire, ones that are no debate, criminals. Then we got the ones in the middle. And the reason I say in the middle is because pretty much everybody I know, there's probably a few extremists out there on one side or the other, but 99% of Americans, 98%, are generally supportive of the police, even if they don't agree with everything the police does or want to see some reforms. And most Americans at the same time know there are some bad police out there because we all know about it. It's been highly publicized, and there are some bad ones. Now where it's getting the controversy, some of the controversies out there is, number one, are the police being properly policed? In other words, could a police officer be charged in the same way someone else committing a crime would? And there's been a perception, right or wrong, that a lot of police have gotten away with a lot of things they should not have gotten away with. On the other side, there are people who say that, okay, if you're a police officer out there doing your job and you got a split second to make a really tough decision about someone that may or may not take your life or take others' lives, they need to be given some slack because it's easy to make a mistake. Okay. And doesn't mean that they don't get punished, but unless there's proof that they went out on purpose to murder somebody, it's not quite the same situation if they think someone was threatening or might have had a gun or did have a gun or whatever. There's a lot of these murky situations where it's like, should the police have used force? Should they have killed somebody? Should they have shot at somebody? Should they have used other force on people who may have died in custody? And there's been a number of controversies out there. And not all the controversies, but some of them do involve race. Where the African American community, especially the poor neighborhoods of African American community and some other minority communities feel that there's been more police injustice and things that have been done or unfair treatment. So that is right now a big problem in the country and has been a problem for quite a long time. And it's a complex problem. Is race the issue? That's part of it. Most of the same communities are also impoverished, so that doesn't help with things. There's often a lot of other issues and problems in these communities, which makes them tough for both the people living there and the people trying to police them. And then the other side is, being a police officer is a tough job, and sometimes there are bad apples, and police are under a lot of pressure not to report the bad apples. If you're a police officer and you see some other police officer engaging in behaviors they shouldn't be doing, there's a lot of pressure not to say anything or to prosecute other police or to give police a lot of benefit of the doubt. So all these are controversies. All these are not easy problems to solve. But this documentary gives a perspective. Like almost everything we watch in here, it's a point of view. You may agree completely with it. You may agree with some of it. You may disagree. I mean, you probably got to, when I share any of these videos with you, you always are welcome to share your opinions. And but I think you'll find it interesting. And even though the original documentary came out a few years ago, they did update it a little bit with the stuff going on this year. So that is connected to these chapters, but it's also kind of its own topic. And it's something about 53-minute documentary. So you got that, you got a couple small videos, and you got the group of videos that go with the notes. So not a bad week in my view at all. I think these topics are much more interesting, as we've gone into other chapters. We're not doing a chapter 7 and 8 test this week, so that's good. We'll do that probably sometime later part of next week. And on Thursday, I'll talk a little more about some of this here. So if you guys got any questions, you may unmute yourself and ask or put in the chat. If you don't, Peyton, if you can put a hello in the chat, that'd be great. If you don't, that's pretty much about all what I got today. So I'm glad you joined me. I am here at school. It's very quiet here today. I'm not going to come in every day, but I like coming in sometimes. So I came in today. I'll probably be in Wednesday, maybe Thursday. I usually post it up on Google Classroom. This class doesn't have much of a reason to come in unless you just feel like working at school. My computer lit class sometimes come in to get help because it's a little different. So, Peyton, nice to see you. How's it going? So, okay.
I'm good.
Yeah. You guys all been on your Cyber Monday shopping?
My mom is.
Your mom is. She didn't give you her credit card and say, have at it?
I wish.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, Cyber Monday, by the way, just a little background for those that don't know. It started back when people had slow internet at home, and they found that a lot of people on Mondays after the holiday was over, they'd go back to work where they would have high-speed internet or better internet at work than at home, and they would do a lot of shopping. So that's kind of how that custom got started. Okay, well, you guys have a great day. Take care. I'll be back Thursday if you want to come back and join me. And I record this, so I'm going to upload this here for those that couldn't make it. Okay, take care.
Bye.
See ya.